We begin our story not in the time of the pharaohs, but in a quiet, lonely place over 3,000 years later. It is the year 1922. In the burning sands of Egypt, near the ancient city of Thebes, there is a valley, a place of eternal rest known as the Valley of the Kings. For 6 long seasons, a patient man named Howard Carter had searched here. Everyone else had given up. They said there was nothing left to find. But Carter kept digging, fueled by a single, powerful belief. A king was missing. On November 4th, a young water boy stumbled, not on a stone, but on a step carved into the bedrock. It led down into the earth, where no one had set foot in 3 millennia. A few days later, Carter stood before a locked doorway. It was covered in mud seals, the seals of a forgotten king. He waited for his friend and patron, Lord Carnarvon, to arrive from far across the sea. The silence must have been deafening, the silence of 3,000 years waiting to be broken. When Carnarvon finally arrived, they made a small breach in the door. Carter held a candle and pushed it through the tiny hole. The hot air rushed out, carrying the scent of ancient oils and dust. Carnarvon held his breath and asked the most famous question in archaeology. "Can you see anything? Can you see?" And Carter, gazing into a room lit by a single flickering flame, his voice barely but a whispered steed, replied, "Yes. Wonderful things." What he saw was not an empty tomb, but the bedroom of a forgotten boy, filled with chariots, statues, beds and chests, a final golden sleep chamber. Who was this boy whose rest was guarded by such magnificent things? To find the answer, we must journey far back, beyond the gold, beyond the dust, into the heart of ancient Egypt itself, the shadow of the sun god. Our story begins with the boy's father, a pharaoh named Akhenaten. Akhenaten was a brilliant, strange, and radical dreamer. He looked out at the great temples, dedicated to 1,000 different gods, Amun, Isis, Osiris, and he found them tedious. He said, "No more. There is only one true God." He tore down the old temples and raised a new god, the Aten, the life-giving disk of the sun. He gathered his beautiful famous queen, Nefertiti, and his court, and they left the great old capital of Thebes. They built a spectacular new city called Amarna, in the middle of the desert, dedicated only to the light of the sun. It was a city of magic and strange new art, beautiful but fragile. It was into this sun-drenched revolution that our hero was born. They named him Tutankhamun, meaning the living image of the Aten. He was not a strapping, strong boy. Evidence tells us he was frail, perhaps suffering from poor health and a foot deformity that made it hard to walk. He was a boy born into a great family, but a troubled kingdom. But the old gods are patient. The priests of Amun were furious. The people were afraid. They missed the familiar comfort of their ancient rituals. Akhenaten's glorious new city was a beautiful but lonely place. When the revolutionary pharaoh died, and he died suddenly, the beautiful, radical experiment of Amarna died with him. The kingdom was in chaos. The old powers scrambled to restore order, and the one who sat upon the throne, barely a child, was the boy, Tutankhamun. He was 9 years old. His powerful advisors immediately ordered a great change. The name of the sun god, Aten, must be wiped away. The boy was given a new name, a name that signaled peace and tradition, Tutankhamun, the living image of Amun. He was led away from his father's sun worship and back to the dark, massive temples of the old gods. His task was monumental, to be the one who healed Egypt. Tutankhamun's reign was a short and quiet one, but it was important. He was the one who restored balance. He spent his years rebuilding the great temples his father had closed, returning the beautiful statues of the gods to their resting places, and making peace with the powerful priests. His greatest comfort was his young wife, Akhenaten. They were half-siblings, as was custom in the royal family, but their affection seems genuine and tender. Look at the famous golden throne now found in his tomb. It shows the young queen, gentle and elegant, applying oil to her husband's shoulder. They were the hope of Egypt, 2 children trying to hold a kingdom together. But sorrow soon found the young couple. They tried to have children, the vital step for any pharaoh establishing his dynasty, but tragedy struck their home. When Howard Carter finally reached the burial chamber, he found something heartbreaking: 2 small, perfectly preserved coffins. Inside were the tiny, mummified bodies of their 2 stillborn daughters. Their great love was marked by a great loss. The truth is, Tutankhamun spent most of his life suffering. He was often in pain. In his tomb, we didn't just find gold and treasures. We found 130 walking sticks, all customized for his frail frame. We found ointments and medicines. We found the simple games and toys a lonely boy would use to pass the time. He was a king, yes, but he was also just a boy trying to live a life. Then, as suddenly as he was crowned, his short life ended. At only 18 or 19 years old, Tutankhamun died. The cause is a great mystery that still whispers today. Was it a swift blow to the head? Was it a combination of fever and disease? We don't know. What we do know is that the sun set early on the golden reign of the boy king. A king must be buried quickly to ensure his passage to the afterlife. But Tutankhamun's death was unexpected. His grand intended tomb wasn't finished. So his chief advisor, rushed to prepare a small, simple tomb, a forgotten corner in the Valley of the Kings. The funeral team had a magnificent task: to prepare the king for eternity. They started with his resting place. They placed his coffin inside a massive shrine of hammered gold. Then they built a second shrine around the first, then a third, and finally a fourth. 4 shining, protective layers like a great golden Russian doll, built to guard his sleep forever. Next came the items he would need in the next life. This is what makes his tomb a bedtime wardrobe. They packed him clothes, sandals, food, wine, and hundreds of jars of fine oils. They gave him his gaming board, his hunting bows, and his chariots. Think of everything a favorite child would ever want for a long, important trip. It was all there. Inside the shrines were the 3 coffins. The first 2 were carved wood, covered in gold leaf. But the innermost one, the deepest one, that was made of solid, pure gold. It weighed over 240 pounds, and inside that final golden shell lay the king. Over his face was placed the most beautiful object ever discovered, the golden death mask. It is the face of a peaceful king, inlaid with blue lapis lazuli and red carnelian. A perfect, serene portrait designed not for the world of the living, but for the eternity of the gods. They sealed the doors, whispered the final spells, and placed a solemn curse to guard his rest. Then his successors immediately began to erase him. His image was scratched from monuments, his name struck from the king lists. The sand blew over the valley, and the boy king went silent. For over 30 centuries, the little tomb remained untouched, forgotten by the world. Later, pharaohs built their great, magnificent tombs nearby. The construction debris from their projects, the leftover rock and sand, covered and protected the entrance to the boy's hasty burial. Tutankhamun did not have the grandest tomb. He did not have the longest reign. He did not win the greatest battles. But because his rest was forgotten, because his tomb was rushed and simple, he was the only pharaoh who slept undisturbed. He was a boy who lived only 19 years, a king who fixed his father's mistakes, and a husband who suffered private grief. He was known for a short time, forgotten for 3,000 years, and then, in one miraculous moment in 1922, he was found. Tonight, we leave him where he was found, in his silent, golden slumber. His reign was brief, but his sleep was eternal. The desert sand has been blown away, his story is once again being whispered, and the boy king, Tutankhamun, is finally at rest.